This time on Road and Race, why I bought an M3. In the previous video I showed you the E92 M3 I just bought, but why did I buy it? Well, to give an accurate answer, I need to talk a little about my previous car history. The first performance car I ever bought was a Nissan 350Z. At the time it was a decision between that, a Z4 and a Boxster. I went with the 350Z as it was cheaper and had the most power. A local dealer was selling a 7-year-old one with just 50,000 miles on the clock for £14,000. So after a test drive, I snapped it up. This was the first car I had ever bought myself after a series of dubious hand-me-downs from my father, including a Nissan Sunny and a Nissan Almera. Also, the less said about the terribly unreliable beige Austin Allegro I stupidly bought for £300 when I was 17, the better. Stepping out of a 86 horsepower Almera into a 300 brake horsepower 350Z was something special, and also something slightly terrifying. All that power going to the rear wheels, I have to admit after a few close calls losing the back end, I had to learn to be gentler with the throttle than I had been before. Without going into too much detail, I will say that this was the first car I ever tracked, and the power it had mixed with an excellent short-shifting manual gearbox was quite intoxicating. The downside, being the massive 1.6 tonnes the convertible version weighed, made the car quite boat-like in the corners. It's safe to say this car has a special place in my heart, and in hindsight, maybe something a new coilover suspension could have fixed. And with prices on the lighter, hardtop versions continuing to fall here in the UK, it's something that I may investigate in the future. Also, unlike a Boxster that affords you a surprising amount of storage, the 350Z had only one tiny boot. So couple that with the huge expense of buying and then renovating my new house, and then the need to get something more practical for the weekly drives to the DIY store, it had to go. In its place, I plumped for something a little more sensible. I bought a 10-year-old BMW 320d which had done over 140,000 miles for the sum of just £4,000. This was an E90, which is the same platform on which my M3 is based. I really enjoyed owning it, as I'd always wanted a smart German saloon car. I felt quite prestigious driving it. There were a few reasons why it was so cheap, which if I'm honest I didn't quite realise when I bought it. It had an uncomfortable ride with unpredictable handling, noticeable steering wobble at motorway speeds. Also, the rear passenger wheel would always go flat even though there were no punctures. It had certainly been unloved, probably a company car for some sales rep pounding up and down the motorway every day. I set about putting some love back into the car. After taking the car to 2 different independent garages here in London, both of which charged me but couldn't tell me what was wrong, I paid BMW to look at it. The report was sobering reading. 3 leaking shock absorbers, shock mounts perished, buckled front alloy wheels, cracked rear alloy wheel, hence why it kept going flat, front under tray damaged, and brake discs heavily rusted. The good news was that I now knew what was wrong. The bad news was that BMW wanted £6,000 for the repairs. Obviously I didn't have that sort of money and didn't want to spend £6,000 on a £4,000 car. Having watched the show Wheeler Dealers for many years, I understood the principle of how to repair a car myself, but felt a bit out of my depth. Luckily, my uncle had worked on cars for many years, so I asked for his help. We went to Eurocar Parts and picked up all the bits for £1,200. I also picked up new brake pads and rebuilt brake calipers since the existing ones were looking quite rusty. So, over the course of 3 days, we set about replacing all the shocks, mounts, brake calipers, discs, pads and hoses. It was hard work, especially as it was all done in the cold on a driveway, but I enjoyed it. After that, I picked up a new under tray from eBay for £34, got a new set of replica M3 17-inch alloy wheels from Tyre Leader, and fitted Michelin Pilot Sport 3 tyres all round. I even felt confident enough to remove the engine manifold and fix the common fault by removing the plastic swell flaps that can snap and fall into the engine. So after about a year of ownership, I had a very sorted and reliable motor. But with everything fixed, I got bored and yearned for a car I could track again. So I got a Boxster. And that's Belle, you know very well. So, after owning her for 2 years, I wanted to get back to the affinity I had for the more practical BMW, just one that was faster and more track focused. Having had and enjoyed the Boxster, there were a few things that I wanted that it couldn't offer. Even though it has more space than most Roadsters, there were still many times where I wasn't able to carry everything I needed. It wasn't as firm on track as I would have liked, but some passengers still complained about the hard ride. Finally, although the Tiptronic gearbox was a saviour for around the congested streets of London, I pined for a manual box again for the track. I had looked at cars such as the Audi RS4, Subaru Impreza WRX and various Mercedes AMGs, but none of them really spoke to me. An E92 M3 was always the car I desired. I thought it looked amazing, was blisteringly fast, but was able to do one thing that many cars couldn't, and that was to be the best of both worlds. A practical, docile saloon car, but with its huge engine and electronically adjustable suspension, turned into a track monster at a touch of a button. But at £60,000 new, it was never a car I thought I could afford. Now though, with prices falling below £20,000, and with the money I would have after selling my Boxster, one was within my means. Deciding on getting one was easy. Now lay the challenge of getting the right one. I didn't know what was standard on the car and what was an option. I also didn't know what the common faults were and what to look for when buying one. So join me next time when I'm in full research mode to find my perfect M3. If you found this video useful, please subscribe and hit the like button as it really helps us make more shows. Please feel free to get in touch by leaving a comment on this video and I reply to everyone. Links to follow us on social media are in the description box. Thanks for watching.